And
All
Rich,
right.
I'll unmute you, Rich, just in case you need, or if you want to unmute yourself, just in case you need to jump in on something that either Julie or I messes up. All right, Julie, over to you.
All right. Thank you. So I've got 6 o'clock on the dot. So we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for joining today and spending your time. Hopefully, the next 45 minutes to an hour listening to my voice and Rich's voice, you don't get too bored. But welcome to the bowling preseason webinar. Just a friendly reminder that our regionals are the 17th and our state finals are going to be the 8th. I am Julie. If you haven't met me, I'm the sports director for bowling. Rich is on here as well. He is our bowling SMT, and our lead official, Steve, who you heard talking earlier, is our senior sports director for sports and competition. Well, my next button doesn't want to seem to work. There we go.
And as we get
Just
started, I'll just jump in real quick, Julie. As we talked about, I know there was one or two people, but if you have questions throughout the session as it's being recorded, please use the chat function. I will be monitoring that along the session this evening while Julie and Rich presents the information. I'll be addressing those questions. At the end, if we have additional questions, we may have time for that, but we want to make sure we get through all the meaningful information first and then address questions as they come in. Thank you. Back to you, Julie.
another reminder here that all of our athletes and volunteers need to have their updated certifications to participate in any Special Olympics Maryland programs, and there's no exception to this policy. We're going to talk about a lot about some certifications here. So again, they need to have all of their proper forms in the system in GMS, and you will talk to your area leadership to do this well in advance to the season starting, please. We do this for the safety of our athletes and to protect Special Olympics and our volunteers. Speaking about those certifications, for each role, there's some different certifications. So I'll just go through them with you guys real quick. So the athletes need to have their athlete medical form and their CDW. For unified teammates and volunteers, they need to have their volunteer screening, their protective behavior certification, and their CDW as well. For sports volunteers and for ramp assistants, please note ramp assistants also need to have these certifications. It will be the volunteer screening, protective behaviors, and the concussion certification, along with the CDW as well. The assistant coaches need to have their volunteer screening, their protective behavior certification, concussion certification, and their assistant coach certification, as well as the CDW. Head coaches adds one more to it, and it's going to be the volunteer screening, protective behavior certification, concussion certification, and the head coach certification for the sport, which will be bowling. And I will get later into some opportunities that we have to update these if they are needed. And they need to have their CDW as well.
And one thing I'll point out there, if you want to go back real quick, Julie, sorry to jump in again. When we say the assistant coach sports certification, basically for assistant coaches, hopefully everyone's aware, that's the coaching Special Olympics athletes course that every coach, assistant coach, and a head coach has to take. And then for the head coaches, they also need the CSOA or Coaching Special Olympics Athletes course, in addition to the sports specific training for bowling as a sport. So again, all coaches are welcome to all the information, but those are the minimum requirements for each of those. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that the differentiation, if you will, from the assistant coach sports certification and the head coach certification. Okay.
All right. With that being said, here are some deadlines. All of these deadlines that I'm going to mention are the date deadlines for the Special Olympics headquarters. And you, as coaches, they have a deadline for the area leadership, and you will need to get these forms and information to the area leadership 1 to 2 weeks prior to the Special Olympics deadline. So, starting off, we've got our training registration deadline. This is when all of the rosters need to be entered into GMS. That will be September 27th. And if you have any athletes or participants that are not submitted by this date, they will be able to participate in training, but they will not be eligible for state competition. Missing forms will need to be submitted to Special Olympics of Maryland headquarters by October 10th. And all of these forms that I had just gone through and Steve had touched on, they need to be valid through December 8th, which is our state competition date. So all of these forms need to be valid through them, please. Competition registration deadlines, they're different for regionals and state championships. This is also when everything will need to be entered into GMS. And for regionals, it's going to be October 24th. And for state championships, it's going to be November 26th. Some
And
more dead.
I'm going to jump in one more time on that, Julie. If you want to go back real quick. Julie was absolutely correct. If they're not on the training registration in GMS by the deadline there, September 27th, as Julie said, they can participate in training, enjoy the sport, learn the sport, that kind of stuff. One thing I'll also clarify is it was stated they won't be able to move on to the state championships. That's true. They also won't be able to come to the regionals. So no competition components for those individuals after that deadline. But of course, they can join the program at a later date, assuming you have a room and availability, and they can learn the sport, meet their teammates, that kind of stuff. They just won't be eligible for the regionals or the states. Okay.
All right, so some more deadlines here. Again, the training registration deadline is September 27th, and then the late form deadline is October 10th. And the last date to submit, oh, I said that backwards. The last date for certifications and forms, yeah, to be submitted at headquarters is October 10th. And then October 16th is when we need an estimated number of bowlers for the regional tournaments. October 25th is the competition registration deadline for regionals. And then another reminder, I'd sent out an email last week about October 30th. That is going to be our pre-competition webinar at 6 o'clock again for the regionals. And this link will be sent out with the follow-up email that I'm going to send tomorrow as well. If you want to go ahead and register for all the webinars now, it is quite helpful to get them on your calendar. That way you know they're there. On November 17th is going to be our regional bowling tournament. And then on the 21st is when a list of bowlers will be sent out who are going to move forward to the states. And that will be distributed to the area directors and the head coaches. And there'll also be a waiting list sent out with that as well. On the 26th is the competition registration deadline. This is tentative just with paperwork and everything like that. It's tough to jam all that paperwork into one spot. So as of right now, that is our tentative deadline. If it does change, there will be an email sent out and you guys will definitely be informed about that. On December 3rd is going to be our pre-competition webinar for states. And on the 8th is going to be our states. I see you're unmuted, Steve. What did I miss?
No, you didn't miss. Excuse me, you didn't miss anything. One of the things that we've always asked coaches to be proactive with is I think most people know, if you don't know, Julie will touch on it as far as advancing from the regionals to the state championships based on placement at the regionals. Typically all gold medalists move forward and sometimes silver medalists. What is very helpful, because when Julie said when we'll send you out those who can advance to the states, for you as a coach to go ahead and get a list of all of your teams and all of your participants who, if able, and get selected to go to states, are ready to go. That way you're not scrambling at the last minute in 3 days trying to get a hold of everyone. Go ahead and get the commitment and the interest level and availability of everybody on your team so that if they are able to advance, you already know. And if they can't, you can let us know immediately. Say, hey, these two people, if they get chosen to states, they can't go. Therefore, we can fill those slots with other participants. So just a helpful hint there and something that will keep you sane at the end of the season.
All right, so touching on those coach requirements again, all of these certifications are for coaches and they need to be done prior to the season of bowling. So those include a Class A volunteer application and a background screening along with the protective behaviors, the online concussion training, the CDW, and the CSOA. The head coaches will need to complete a sport specific training, and we'll touch on some dates later in these slides of when we are offering those trainings. We are doing in-person trainings. If these in-person trainings don't work for you, shoot me an email, but we'll get to that later. So all of these certifications are valid for 3 years and they need to be valid through December 8th, which is our state championship tournament. So they need to be valid the whole time that you're a coach. These certifications need to be complete and valid. Again, it's quite repetitive, but kind of want to drill the information in and make sure we got all of our ducks in a row before we get too far into the season. All of these certifications need to be up to date throughout the through the state championship, which is December 8th, along with the CSOA. And the coaches must complete a approved training, which is the in-person trainings that I am going to mention. If you do not complete the sport specific training, you cannot classify as anything higher than a head coach. So if you don't, you could be an assistant coach, a sport volunteer, and or a volunteer. And if you have any more information you're looking for, this will be on our coaches resource page, or you can reach out to me and I will be able to get that information out for you. So that in-person coaching training I was talking about, we do have one that is firm and scheduled for September 14th at 2:30 at Southside Bowl in Hagerstown. And the registration link was sent out to you guys, but it's also on these slides if you want to go ahead and get yourself registered. That way we have you in there and we can get you squared away with all the information. Rich is planning on putting on a coaches training as well. At this point, it is tentative for September 21st at 12 p.m. in Gaithersburg at Bowl America. This is tentative because we are trying to square away some last minute dates with the bowling alley. But once that's squared away, I will send an email out to you guys with a few other reminders. For an athlete to qualify for the state tournament, they must complete in a 15 they must have a 15 game oh my English, this holiday weekend's really getting to me. They must have a 15 game average prior to registration for the tournament. And these averages can be from other tournaments, league play, and complete games during the practice session. As long as it is 15 games and it falls under one of those categories, you're good to go. They must also, as Steve has mentioned, compete in the regional tournament to be considered for the state tournament. And we will be selecting athletes from the regional tournament to compete in the state tournament. The way we do this is we take all of the gold medalists and some of the silver medalists, and we do a random draw of the silver medalists, and we will make spaces for them in the state tournament based on the number of spaces we have available and the number of gold medalists. So if there is more gold medalists, unfortunately, it will be less silver medalists. It kind of just one hand feeds the other kind of thing. There will be a wait list that is sent out as well. You guys will get that information once it comes closer to the tournament. The drawing will be conducted the Tuesday after the regionals tournament. So you guys will get an email sent out with all of that information as well. For your athletes qualifying for the state tournament, they need to have all of their updated forms and everything like that, their CDW and their athlete medical form. And the coaches have to be up to date with all of their certifications by the specified deadline. They also must have that 15 game average, and they must compete in regionals to compete in the state championship. So here's a tentative schedule of what it's kind of going to look like for the regionals day. We say tentative because this does depend on the number of bowlers that we do get for the deadline. So it's all going to kind of depend because bowling alleys aren't unlimited now. Oh my English. Holy smokes. Bowling alleys are not a unlimited number of lanes, so it all does depend on the number of athletes that we do have participating. So for right now, tentatively, we do have Cumberland, which is going to be at White Oak Lane. And it's going to be Allegheny County, Carroll County, Frederick County, Garrett County, and Washington County. Gaithersburg is going to be at Bowl of America, as it was in the past years. It's going to be Charles County, Montgomery County, Prince George's County, and all of the doubles team. Again, this is tentative depending on what our numbers are once we get a better look at the number of athletes. Ellicott City is going to be again at Bolero, and it's going to be Cecil County, Harford County, Howard County, and Baltimore City. Crofton Bowl Center is going to be Anne Arundel County, Baltimore County, Calvert County, Kent County, St. Mary's County, and Upper and Lower Shore. This is all tentative. Once we get a closer number, we will have a permanent schedule out to you guys no later than October 30th with the exact locations of where your delegation will be participating in regionals. One bump in the road with bowling is that there is a limited amount of space. Bowling alleys aren't huge, unfortunately, so there is a possibility that we will need to limit the amount of spectators for regionals and or finals. If this possibility does arise, we will be reaching out to the programs and you guys will be notified with the information in regards to the amount of spectators that will be allowed. And Rich, you're the professional on the rules, so I'm going to let you go ahead and take it away with the rules.
Hello, everybody. Just one comment on the name of the bowling lane up in Gaithersburg. Bowl America, to the best of my knowledge, is now called Bolero Gaithersburg. They've done a huge transformation on the inside, cleaned the place up. Looks a whole lot different. All right, the rules are the same bowling rules, although the picture on the slide is the 2020 picture. The rules were the same in 2020. There were minor changes made in 2022, mostly wording changes. So if you don't have a set of the sports rules, or haven't looked at it before, look at them online just to be familiar with them. Smoking and alcohol use. That's not a rule
And
that I usually enforce.
yeah, I'll hit
Suggestions.
on this. I'll hit on this one, Rich. Two things. As Rich mentioned, you can look up the bowling rules online through Special Olympics International. You can also use our coaches resource page at Special Olympics Maryland, and Julie will make sure if we don't have that up today, that the bowling rules are ready for you at our coaches resource page, which you see the link at the bottom here of our general coaches resource page. Then you can scroll down and look for bowling specifically. Um, so hopefully everyone's aware of this, but if not, we have had a situation over the last year or two where certain members, it was basically spectators and family members, weren't aware of the situation. So even though a bowling lane may have alcohol for sale, no one from Special Olympics spectators or otherwise is to partake in the use of alcohol, be under the influence of alcohol or any illicit drugs, etc., as well as smoking. I will say typically there are smoking spots outside of the competition venue or a designated smoking area, usually in the parking lot or outside the doors. That's okay, but nothing inside, no vaping, and that includes no drinking outside either, obviously. So just want to make sure that you guys as coaches inform your family members of this policy. Again, we had one situation last year. The individual just didn't know. It was a little uncomfortable addressing them, but they were very respectful and supportive of the situation. But we just don't want to run into that in the future. So we rely on you coaches to let the family members and others who may be coming as spectator to support the athletes and teammates of this policy. So with that, Rich, I'll turn it over to you for bowling specific rules.
Thanks, Steve. We're going to have the singles events, traditional doubles, and unified doubles. I'm not going to read these slides word for word. Based on the faces I see in the pictures here, most of you I think I've met or we've seen each other at the competitions before. Ramp bowlers. This is usually, if I can say without getting into trouble, my biggest headache as an official. Understanding what the rules are, excuse me, regarding ramp bowlers, okay? Ramp bowlers will be divisions with other competitors or teams during the events. They're listed as assisted or unassisted. What that means is we don't separate the ramp bowlers into one division. We include them in the divisions that they qualify based on their averages. This way they get a fair competition. Yes, the ramps and sometimes the wheelchairs cause a little bit of confusion, get in the way a little bit, if you will, but we want to provide the same competition opportunity for our ramp bowlers as we do for all the rest of our bowlers. But handicap, we've been using for many years 100% of the difference between a bowler's average and 200. What that means, if a bowler has an average of 50, they get 150 pins. They have an average of 100, they get 100 pins, 150 average, they get a 50 pin handicap. And that pretty much makes the competition equal for everybody. If everybody bowls their average at a competition, everybody will score the same exact score of 200. Number of games, we'll bowl 3 games at the regional and the state competitions. Hopefully you guys do that during your practices. If you don't, I would suggest that 2 or 3 weeks before the competition that you get the athletes bowling 3 games so that they're used to it and they build the stamina up for the bowling competitions. We alternate lanes. Surprisingly, even at the USA Games and at the World Games, I've had coaches come up to me and say, we don't teach it that way, the alternating lanes. We just bowl on one lane. I don't know that we've had that happen in Maryland, but typically what you do is you bowl in a pair of lanes. You bowl one frame to the 2 balls on the one frame and the one lane, and then the next frame it's on the adjoining lane. So it's back and forth, back and forth. I think most of you are familiar with that. Foul lines. Foul lines will be on and will be called either automatically by the scoring machine, or if someone happens to see, one of the officials happens to see an individual cross the foul line, all right? That means your foot can cross the foul line. If you fall and your hand crosses the foul line, it's a foul. However, one thing to be mindful of that a lot of people don't know is if I happen to foul, but I never released the ball, there was never a ball delivery, it's not a foul. Bumpers, we do not utilize bumpers for the competitions. If your athletes are practicing with bumpers in your program, and you have some that's all that they can do, that's great. They can be in your program, but we do not use bumpers during the competition. And none of the scores that athletes that are going to the regional or state tournaments that were used with the assistance of bumpers can count towards the 15-game average.
Hey, Rich, I had a question come in real quick, and I'm going to answer it, and you correct me if I say anything incorrect. It's regarding handicaps. So a question came in if you can't see, if you have a unified partner that has a 205 average, a 205, their handicap would be 0. If you have somebody who has a 195 15-game average, their handicap would be 5, so on and so forth. But basically, George Hale, your question is yes, anybody who bowls a 200 or above, their handicap is 0. As coaches, you don't need to enter that in GMS as far as the scores or anything. We do that when we do the final divisioning for both the regionals and the state competitions. We also do have a handout that we give out at both of the tournaments that kind of explain the handicap process. We know that has been a confusion point for some individuals who come as families and spectators and don't know really what that situation is. So, Rich, did I cover that correctly? And
Yes.
then, okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, lane courtesy. This is one of the most difficult things I've found as a coach with Special Olympics, is getting our athletes to abide by lane courtesy. When they see their name up there, they want to be on the lane and they want to roll their ball. What we're trying to teach our athletes in Montgomery County, and you should be in your counties as well, is when a bowler is up, they should look to their left and their right. And if one of those two bowlers is already up on the approach, getting ready to deliver their ball, then they should wait for, a few seconds or whatever until the other athlete starts to make the approach to deliver their ball. I think most of you are familiar with it. You're probably having the same fun that we do, trying to teach it and getting the athletes to abide by it. But it's the beginning of our season now. Let's try and reinforce that so that we don't have athletes getting upset because other people are bowling at the same time they are right adjacent to them. Alternates. This one I'm going to read word for word because I don't usually deal with this part. This is more of Julie's job when it comes to Julie or whoever the lead person is at the bowling center. But I'll read it for you. A bowler who is registered in singles may also be registered as an alternate for a doubles event. Alternates do not have to be assigned any specific team. Participants are eligible as an alternate only if registered as such prior to the competition registration date. Activation of alternates will be declared by the head of delegation during the delegation registration period upon arrival at the site. A bowler may only be able to compete in one event. They may not be in both singles and serve as an alternate in doubles. Pretty much that's impossible because the competitions are going on at the same time, but it wouldn't be allowed anyways. If a bowler is activated as an alternate for a doubles team at the regional tournament, that bowler may only advance to the state tournament as a member of the doubles team. They can't revert back to a singles bowler. Coaching. Coaches are not permitted in the lane area during the competition, which pretty much there's a division line or steps or something, carpet, different colored tile. Coaches are to stay back in the spectator area. They can go up to that point and they can call their athletes over as long as they do not delay the game. For instance, if you have an athlete just bowl, they're two balls and they had some really bad throws and you want to give them a pointer, straighten your arm out, do this, do that, the other thing, you can call them back to you and you can coach them. However, during the period where they throw the first ball and they're getting ready to throw the second ball, you would be delaying the game and you'll be put on notice for that. Ramp bowling, the assistants. What's most important with ramp bowling is that it must be the athlete's ability, must be the athlete's ability to provide the force to deliver the ball and provide instruction, either verbal or nonverbal, indicating of what direction they want the ramp to go. The athlete can also move the ramp themselves, but some athletes may not have that ability, so they would tell their assistant, I needed to point to the left. I needed to point to the right. I needed to do whatever it is they needed to do. The ball must move and must be directed by the athlete, okay? A lot of times when we have issues at the competition, it's because an assistant grabs the ramp, is standing behind it, looking down the rails at the pins, putting the ramp in a position where it's aiming towards the head pin or the 7-pin or whatever. Then the athlete comes up and the ramp has already been aimed by the assistant, and the athlete just pushes the ball. You'll be put on notice for that. And I know I have a few friends on here that are probably not considering me a friend because I've had to point that out a few times. But please, 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 if you have any questions on the ramp assistant, email me, email Julie. Julie will get to me, and I'll explain it better if I can. Go ahead to the next slide. I think the next slide talks about, yeah. Basically, the ramp assistant will grab the ramp. I teach my people to grab it at like a 90-degree angle, and here it'll say that your back must be to the lanes, which is technically correct. But what I say at a 90-degree angle is you want to make sure that the front of the ramp is not crossing the foul line. And if your back is completely to the lanes, that's kind of hard to see. So when you walk up there, you grab the ramp. Again, I say at a 90-degree angle from the side. You walk it up, you make sure it's not crossing the foul line, and you place it generally in the center of the lane. But you're on the side of the ramp. You're not at the back of the ramp looking down the ramp. Okay? So that's generally where people get into issues with the ramp assistant, is actually aiming the ramp. Some athletes are able to say, hey, it needs to go this way, hey, it needs to go that way, or they can point. You know, whatever communication they come up with their assistant is fine, but it must be the athlete's ability to tell the assistant which way to move the ramp. I think I covered that without reading it word for word. Failure to adhere to this, as mentioned, will result in the athlete being disqualified from the competition. That's happened a few times in the past. The athlete does get to continue and will get a participation ribbon. However, they will not be eligible for a placement ribbon, even if they do score the gold level score. They will get a participation ribbon because it was the assistants doing all of the work. Assistants must meet all the requirements as previously mentioned. If an athlete who bowls with a ramp assistant attends an event without their assigned a ramp assistant from their area or their county, the athlete will be disqualified and will bowl for a participation ribbon only. So make sure that the person that your athlete trains with is the person that comes to the competition. The assistant has just as much responsibility to the athlete to be consistent with training and attendance for the competition, as well as practicing with them. What I do with our program is we try to find people that are going to work with the athletes from the beginning of our season and have them work with the athletes. So this way I can monitor and the other coaches can monitor and provide them with pointers and tips to make sure we don't have the disqualifications at the regional and the state games. Attire.
Yeah, and I think as Rich was stating there, it's as important in my opinion to have the ramp assistant have the same commitment as any doubles team or unified doubles team as teammates. They're making the commitment for the team throughout the season, similar as the ramp assistant should also make that commitment to that given athlete. I'm here for the entirety of the season. It provides consistency, that type of stuff. And again, as Rich echoed or led into it, that ramp assistant should be and must be with the athlete throughout the season, including regionals and state championships. There will not be general volunteers stepping into that role, etc. Consider the ramp assistant as a member of that team, if you will. Thank you, Rich. Back to you.
Yep. One more thing on the ramp assistant. What you may want to try to do, and some of you are probably already doing it, we try it in our program, is if you can get another Special Olympics athlete to be the ramp assistant, if they have the ability to understand the rules and work together, then they would enter the competitions as a team. And that works out really well as far as building friendships and giving an athlete that has perhaps a little bit more understanding of the rules, the ability to help the other athlete, and kind of a semi-leadership role with being their assistant. Attire. As you all know, we enforce attire at all of our competitions. Our athletes need to make sure that they're wearing the proper shirts, the proper kind of slacks and shoes. All participants must be wearing the proper attire. Anybody that is wearing torn, dirty, frayed clothing, it's unacceptable. Collared shirts are required. I'm wearing a regular shirt, t-shirt tonight. No t-shirts, even if it's got your county program on it. Please have your county bowling t-shirts, or be it they polo shirts or bowling shirts for the competition. Footwear, all competitors must be wearing bowling shoes. They can either be their own shoes or they can be shoes from the venue. Just remember, remind your athletes that you don't wear the bowling shoes in the car and walk through the stony parking lot to come inside the building. Believe it or not, I've seen that. They want to leave their sneakers out in the car, and then it's a rainy day, and not only do they got the stones, but they got the cigarette butts and everything else they picked up by the door when they come in. Again, bowling shoes can be provided by the center if your athlete doesn't have them. There'll be no hats, baseball, or other type headwear is permitted, with some ease on that rule for religious reasons, and pre-approved by the sports management personnel. Headphones, earbuds, whatever you want to call them, are not permitted. The only thing that's allowed is the small little earplugs, which are usually brought to the venue by Special Olympics Maryland, and you can ask for them. They're the ones that you squeeze and you put in your ear. So, wearing headphones or earbuds is not permitted. The slacks. This is usually one of our issues that kind of comes up once or twice at each competition. If you remember, wearing slacks that appear to be like Dockers, the khaki type pants, that's what's appropriate. They don't have to be khaki color. They don't have to be blue, black, or otherwise, but they need to be of I guess you call it a casual type slack appearance. Inappropriate slacks include, but not limited to, cutoff shorts over 3 inches above the kneecap, jeans, sweatpants, exercise pants, including those that are gathered with a stirrup at the bottom, leggings or spandex, or any other form-fitting pants such as people wear for biking, or tight shorts. Boxer shorts or shorts that look like boxer shorts are worn out as outerwear. Clothing which allow the undergarments to be exposed. There is a uniform check done prior to each of the competitions, and I know a few athletes usually get called out and their coaches get put on notice to make sure that the athletes have the proper attire. I think I saw that question regarding the earplugs. They're kind of the little rubbery, foamy ones that you can probably pick them up at, I would guess, Dick's, or you buy them online, but SOMD provides them.
Yeah, George, Rich is right. We usually have them, but if you want to get a set for your athletes that may have the hearing sensitivities or whatever to get them used to wearing those, make sure you send Julie a note. I looked quickly in my drawer here. I don't have a set with me to give you the exact name or brand or whatever. Um, they're similar. They're almost the same thing as that a starter uses with the starting gun at track and field. Some of them do use the headphones or the big ear cancellations for that. But yeah, Rich has an example there. What is that called? E-Buster? You're muted. You're muted, Rich. Hey, Rich, you're muted. Rich, you're muted. Yep, there
Sorry
you
about
go.
that. They're resistor foam earplugs. So
Yep,
they're just little rubber pieces that you squeeze or foam pieces, which makes them smaller. You put them in your ear and then they re-expand. You could probably
yep.
find these on Amazon real
Yeah,
easy. You probably get
yeah.
a box of 1,000 of them for like $10, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we'll
Gotcha.
definitely
Yeah, so
be. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, we can send that out with the recording and the follow-up here, where you can purchase those and give you some examples there, George, and anybody else for that matter. So we appreciate that. One thing, I haven't seen any other questions come in, so if there are any questions, you can type those into the chat now. We'll address them. As we look for those questions, I do want to recognize two individuals. I know Rich is obviously on the call. Not sure if Ken Faulkner is, and also Rob Wright. They serve on our rules committee at the different venues. Rich, as he indicated or alluded to, has been selected in the last couple of years as a USA Games coach for Team Maryland at the USA Games. He's been a lead official and technical delegate at the USA Games and is also, I think, now a technical and at World Games as well, and a technical delegate for the upcoming 2026 USA Games in Minneapolis. Ken Faulkner also serves on that committee, and he has served as a coach for us when we have individuals go out to the Unified Bowling National Invitational Tournament, typically in the Nevada region. So I just want to give our members of our team and lead officials due recognition for their accomplishments and excuse me, and their service to Special Mix Maryland, Special Mix USA, and Special Mix International for that matter. So with that, don't see any questions. We will run through a few slides here just so you know they'll be included in the sheets in the slide deck. This is just additional information that we have and provide to every sport and every coach for the preseason webinars. And Julie, just keep going. I'll stop you when we get to one particular slide. But this just talks about a lot of the other information we've already covered here in a little bit more detail and gives you other coaches' resources and things of that nature. Um, One of the things as that I will say as coaches, your responsibility to have the athlete medicals on file with you at practices and traveling to competitions, et cetera, in case an emergency situation does arise, so that you have a copy of that to provide to the medical personnel. The other form that I strongly encourage you to have as well is what we call our incident report form, incident or accident report form. Those are available to you on our coaches resource page as well as through your area leadership. This is the form there, Julie, if you could stop. This is, if you haven't seen this as a coach, make sure you have a couple copies of this. Typically, this is meant to address or be used in the case that an injury to a person occurs, whether it's a family member, a spectator, an athlete, a coach, etc. So this is something that is followed up with from medical and insurance perspectives from the local county program as well as the state office. The other thing I will say is it also says an accident or an incident. So this can also be used in the situation where damage to property has occurred. So it's an injury to a person or damage to property. Say, hey, you've all probably seen a video on Facebook or TikTok or something where someone throws a bowling ball up and it hits the screen and breaks the screen or ceiling tile or something of that nature. That's where this can also be utilized from an insurance perspective. So just want you to be aware of that. This is another forum for you to have on your person at events and practices, etc., in case situations do arise. So you can scroll through the rest of them here, Julie. That being said, again, I don't see any questions. If you do have a question, at this point, we would ask you to either raise your hand or type it in the chat. Otherwise, we will get to the end of these slides and thank you for a great evening and wish you well in your bowling season. Again, we thank you for joining us this evening. We thank you, Rich, for your expertise and lending that to us tonight. The CSOA, the Coaching Special Olympics Athletes course availability. Yeah, we can follow up with that if there's individuals who need that. We have had several sessions that have been offered. We were unable to provide those in person due to lack of registration numbers, but we do have several options for you to do it online, if you will. You can check our coaches resource page for that, Trish and others. And if you're unable to locate that, you can contact Julie and she can provide additional guidance for that.
And if there is any other further questions, please don't be afraid to send me an email. I send plenty of them a day and I'd love to talk to you guys. So just send me an email, ask whatever question you need to ask and stuff like that. And I'll be sending up a follow-up email tomorrow with some important information that I'll be hitting on as well. And there will be a coach's resource page link, and that will also have the CSOA training and all of the requirements and everything like that on it. And it will have the webinars and everything like that. And it'll just have the important information kind of pull aparts with the recordings and the slides and everything like that. And if you have any follow-up questions, please don't be afraid. Send me an email, ask the question. There's no stupid question. So just ask it. And if I don't know it, I'll ask somebody in the office. Steve might know it. If Steve doesn't know it, we'll turn to Rich. Somebody will know the answer. So please don't be afraid to ask any questions or anything like that. Shoot me an email. I also want to say thank you guys for spending your time with us today. The 45 minutes, it was pretty quick. So it was only 41 minutes of your guys' time, but really appreciate you guys being on here. And thank you, Rich, for your expertise and opinions and everything like that on all of the officials information and stuff like that. But I really appreciate you guys being on, and don't be afraid to ask some questions. And I look forward to bowling season with you guys.
Yeah, and I think as Trish and Julie has mentioned several times throughout this evening, the coaches resource page, there's several links to those resources page throughout the slide deck. I also mentioned the same thing that is not just for coaches. There's no password that's open to any of your competitors, family members, anything else. They have access to that. It's designed for coaches, but it is public access. If you do go there and you see something that you can't find or you think needs to be added, let Julie know from a bowling perspective. And if we feel at the state office that it would be something we would like to add to it, we will certainly do so. Again, we're all in this together to provide the best experience, the best opportunity, the best coaches, trainings, the best practice sessions, the best season for everyone involved, not just the athletes and unified teammates, but to the ramp assistants, the sport volunteers, the coaches, the assistant coaches, the other volunteers in the program, and our management and everybody else involved. So with that being said, on behalf of Jim Schmutz, our president and CEO, and Special Mix Maryland, we thank you for your dedication and your service to Special Mix Maryland, your local county offices and leadership, the athletes and unified teammates that you serve as a coach, and many other hats you may wear, whether it's USA Games, World Games, family member of an athlete, fundraising committee member, area management team member, area director, et cetera, et cetera. So we thank you for your service. We're here and all together to make this the best opportunity in Special Olympics Maryland for those who are involved. So anything we can do to help you, we appreciate it. Anything you can do to help us, let us know or we'll let you know.